Close your eyes for a moment, not to escape the world, but to enter it more deeply. You have lived your whole life looking outward, through two eyes that see forms, names, faces, successes, failures. But there is another eye within you, an eye that does not look at things, it looks through them. This is what the ancients called the third eye. It is not mystical fantasy. It is your deepest intelligence, your inner clarity, your capacity to see truth without distortion. The third eye is not about belief. It is about awareness. When it opens, confusion begins to fall away. Fear loses its grip. And life is no longer lived in reaction, but in understanding. You stop seeing life as chaos and start seeing it as a silent order. You stop asking, "Who am I?" and begin to experience it. Today, this speech is not to give you information. It is to remind you of something you already carry within you. The power of your third eye is the power to awaken, to move from darkness to light, from noise to silence, from illusion to truth. The third eye is not something to be created. It is something to be uncovered, because nothing essential is ever missing from you. It has only been forgotten. From the very beginning, you were taught how to look outward, how to desire, how to compare, how to compete, how to chase reflections in the mirror of society. No one taught you how to look inward, because an inward-looking person cannot be controlled easily, cannot be manipulated, cannot be reduced to a consumer or a follower. The third eye is awareness itself, pure seeing without choice, without condemnation, without praise. It is not imagination, it is not fantasy, it is not hallucination, it is clarity. When awareness deepens, perception changes. And when perception changes, the whole life changes without effort. You continue doing the same things, but something fundamental has shifted inside you. You are no longer asleep while walking, no longer reacting mechanically, no longer living according to borrowed ideas. The third eye opens when you stop believing and start seeing. Belief is always second-hand. Awareness is direct. Belief comes from others. Awareness arises from your own being. This is why awareness is dangerous to all systems that depend on obedience. A person with an awakened third eye does not follow blindly, does not hate blindly, does not love blindly. Love becomes understanding, anger dissolves into insight, fear melts into light. The third eye does not fight darkness, it simply brings light, and darkness disappears on its own. This is one of the most misunderstood truths. You don't need to struggle with your problems, you need to see them clearly. The moment you see a problem totally, it loses its power over you. Partial seeing creates conflict. Complete seeing creates freedom. The third eye is the capacity to see totally. It watches your thoughts arise and fall like clouds in the sky. It watches emotions surge and subside like waves in the ocean. Slowly, a great distance is created between the watcher and the watched. You realize you are not the mind, because the mind can be seen. You realize you are not the body, because the body can be observed. This realization is not intellectual, it is existential. It changes the quality of your breathing, the way you walk, the way you listen, the way you touch life. Time begins to slow down, because hurry belongs to the unconscious mind. Awareness is never in a hurry, it is eternally patient. When the third eye begins to function, even for a single moment, you taste a silence that is not dead but alive, not empty but full, not boring but overflowing with presence. In that silence, answers are no longer needed because questions dissolve. You no longer ask who you are because you are. You no longer ask what truth is because you see it everywhere. In a leaf falling, in a child laughing, in your own breath moving in and out. The third eye is not concerned with miracles. Its greatest miracle is simplicity. Life becomes ordinary, and in that ordinariness, it becomes sacred. You start living for the first time, not according to past memories or future expectations, but according to this moment. And this moment is enough. More than enough. Because eternity is hidden inside it. And the third eye is the key that opens this hidden door. See, without judgment is the most radical transformation that can happen to human consciousness. Because judgment is the root of all inner conflict. From childhood you were trained to label everything good and bad, right and wrong, sacred and sinful, success and failure. These labels were not discovered by you, they were imposed. Once the mind learns labeling, it never rests. It judges others, it judges situations, and finally it judges itself. This continuous judgment creates tension, guilt, pride, comparison, and fear. The third eye begins to open the moment you watch without judging. Watching is innocent, judgment is violent. Watching simply reflects what is. Judgment immediately distorts it. When you look at a flower without calling it beautiful, something extraordinary happens. The mind becomes silent for a moment, because judgment is the language of the mind. In that silence, the third eye becomes active. Seeing without judgment does not make you indifferent. It makes you intelligent. Indifference is cold. Awareness is warm. Awareness sees clearly but does not interfere. It allows life to reveal itself instead of forcing conclusions upon it. When you observe anger without condemning it or justifying it, anger starts losing its heat. It survives only on resistance or approval. Pure observation is like light, it penetrates deeply. The third eye is this penetrating clarity. It does not say, this should not be, it simply sees, this is. The moment you accept what is, transformation begins automatically. This is one of the deepest paradoxes of existence. Change happens through acceptance, not through struggle. The judging mind is always trying to improve, to become something else, to reach somewhere else. The seeing mind rests here and now. Through the third eye you realize that life does not need correction. It needs understanding. When understanding arises, unnecessary patterns fall away on their own. You stop forcing yourself to be good, and goodness flowers naturally. You stop forcing yourself to be loving, and love flows effortlessly. Judgment divides. Observer versus observed, me versus you, higher versus lower. Seeing without judgment unites. There is no division between the one who sees and what is seen. This unity brings a deep relaxation, as if you have finally dropped a heavy burden you were carrying without knowing it. With the third eye, even mistakes are seen without guilt, and guilt is one of the most poisonous emotions. Guilt keeps you stuck in the past. Awareness liberates you into the present. When you watch your thoughts without judging them, they slow down. When you watch your emotions without judging them, they become transparent. When you watch yourself without judging, you become compassionate. And compassion toward oneself is the beginning of true compassion toward others. A person who sees without judgment cannot be cruel, because cruelty comes from unconsciousness. Such a person responds instead of reacting. Reaction is mechanical. Response is conscious. The third eye transforms reactions into responses. Life no longer pushes your buttons, because there are no buttons left to be pushed. You see situations clearly and act out of clarity, not out of habit. This clarity brings a tremendous freedom. You are no longer a slave to opinions, traditions, or inner voices that keep commenting endlessly. Silence becomes your natural state. From this silence, action arises spontaneously, accurately, lovingly. The third eye is not against the mind. It simply puts the mind in its right place, as a servant, not as a master. When judgment disappears, perception becomes pure, like a clean mirror reflecting without distortion. In that purity, truth does not need to be searched for. It reveals itself in every moment, in every experience, in every breath, and life is no longer something to be endured or conquered, but something to be witnessed with deep reverence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of inner noise. The world has always been full of sounds, yet the sages found silence in the marketplace and the forest alike. What disturbs you is not sound, but the constant chatter inside your head. Thoughts talking to thoughts, memories arguing with desires, past pulling you backward, future dragging you forward. In this inner crowd, the third eye cannot function. It needs space, it needs stillness, it needs a gap. Silence is that gap. When you become silent, not forcibly but lovingly, something subtle begins to awaken within you. Silence is not something you do. It is something you allow. The moment you stop interfering with the mind starts settling on its own, just as muddy water becomes clear when left undisturbed. The third eye opens in this clarity. Silence is the doorway because truth is not noisy. Lies need repetition. Truth needs only presence. When you sit silently, watching your breath, watching your thoughts without chasing them, a great miracle happens. Thoughts start losing their urgency. They still come, but they no longer possess you. You are no longer inside them. They are passing in front of you. This distance is the birth of the third eye. In silence, you are no longer identified with the stream of thinking. You become the witness. And the witness is always silent. Even when words are spoken, the witness remains quiet inside. This inner quietude brings a new quality to your life. You start listening more, speaking less, understanding deeper. Silence sharpens perception. In noise, everything is blurred. In silence, everything is vivid. Colors seem brighter. Faces more expressive. Ordinary moments more alive. Silence is not dull. It is immensely vibrant. It is full of subtle music that can be heard only when the mind is quiet. The third eye perceives this music, this rhythm of existence. Through silence, you start sensing life rather than thinking about it. Thinking is indirect, sensing is direct. Silence removes the mediator. You encounter reality naked, without interpretation. This is why silence can feel uncomfortable at first. The mind feels threatened because silence is its death. The mind survives on activity. Silence starves it. But you are not the mind. The more silent you become, the more alive you feel. This aliveness is the fragrance of the third eye. In silence, fear dissolves because fear needs imagination and imagination needs thought. In silence, desire relaxes because desire is always about tomorrow and silence is always now. You start living in the present, not as an effort but as a natural state. Silence teaches you patience, and patience opens deeper layers of awareness. The third eye does not open in a hurry. It opens like a flower, slowly, gracefully, without violence. Silence is the soil. Awareness is the seed. Without silence, awareness cannot grow roots. With silence, even a small seed of awareness can become a vast tree. When silence deepens, you no longer seek answers. You become receptive. And existence always responds to receptivity. Insights arise not as thoughts, but as realizations. You don't think them, you see them. This seeing is effortless, luminous, undeniable. Silence becomes your home. Even in activity, even in conversation, even in movement, something inside remains untouched, calm, centered. From this center, the third eye looks. It does not look outward. It looks inward and outward simultaneously. The division disappears. Life is no longer fragmented. Everything falls into a silent harmony, where you are not separate from existence, where you are a participant, not an observer, and yet deeply aware, deeply present, deeply rooted. In a silence that cannot be disturbed by the world, fear exists only because you are living through borrowed eyes, seeing the world through ideas given by others, through memories of the past and projections of the future. Fear is never in the present. It is always either what has happened or what might happen. Illusion is the mind's way of protecting its false identity. The third eye cuts directly through both. When awareness deepens, fear has nowhere to hide. You don't fight fear, you see it. And the moment you see fear clearly, without running away, without explaining it, without decorating it with words, it begins to evaporate. Fear feeds on unconsciousness the way darkness feeds on the absence of light. The third eye is light. Illusion is not destroyed violently, it is exposed. And once exposed, it cannot survive. Illusion depends on belief, repetition, and sleep. The third eye brings wakefulness. You realize that most of what you feared never existed except in imagination. Even suffering loses its sharpness when seen clearly. Pain may remain, but suffering disappears, because suffering is pain plus resistance. The third eye removes resistance by bringing understanding. You stop asking why life is happening to you and begin to see how life is moving through you. This shift is immense. Fear is always connected to the ego, because the ego is fragile, continuous, afraid of being hurt, insulted, defeated, or annihilated. The third eye reveals that the ego is not your reality. It is a shadow created by identification. Once you see this, fear collapses. How can a shadow be afraid of death? Only something unreal fears disappearance. Awareness knows no fear because awareness has no boundary. It is not born. It does not die. It only witnesses forms coming and going. When this is seen, courage arises naturally, not as bravery but as clarity. You no longer need to pretend strength. Weakness itself is seen and accepted. And in that acceptance, weakness transforms into strength. Illusion also includes your ideas about success, failure, morality, spirituality, and even enlightenment. The third eye strips spirituality of all drama. It shows you that truth is simple, but the mind loves complexity because complexity keeps it relevant. The third eye makes everything simple. You see things as they are, not as you want them to be. This honesty is frightening at first because lies are comfortable and familiar. But only through this honesty does freedom arise. When illusion drops, you stop living in comparison. Comparison is the root of misery. The third eye shows you that there is no one above you and no one below you. There is only uniqueness. From this realization, jealousy disappears, competition disappears, and a deep peace settles in. Fear of judgment also dissolves, because you see that people judge from their own unconsciousness. Their opinions no longer define you. The third eye gives you inner authority. You no longer look outside for permission to be yourself. You begin to live authentically, not perfectly, but truthfully. And a truthful life has its own beauty. Even mistakes become part of growth, not sources of shame. Illusion keeps you divided. Awareness makes you whole. With the third eye, you no longer escape life, you enter it totally. You taste joy without clinging and sorrow without drowning. Everything becomes transparent. Nothing needs to be suppressed. Nothing needs to be exaggerated. Life flows, and you flow with it. Fearless not because danger is gone, but because understanding is present. Because clarity has replaced confusion. Because the light of awareness is now strong enough that no shadow can pretend to be real energies constantly moving within you. But it follows one simple law. It moves where your attention goes. Most of your energy is wasted because your attention is scattered. A little in the past, a little in the future, a little in regrets, a little in hopes, a little in fears. This scattered attention creates a fragmented life. The third eye gathers this scattered energy and brings it back home. When attention turns inward, energy stops leaking. You suddenly feel more alive, more centered, more intense without strain. This intensity is not tension, it is presence. The mind is outward looking by habit. It has been trained to chase objects, goals, relationships, achievements. The third eye reverses this direction. It is a turning point, a return. Attention begins to watch the watcher. This is a rare moment because attention is usually always pointed somewhere else. When attention looks inward, thought slows, breath deepens, and a subtle warmth spreads through the body. This is not imagination, it is energy becoming available. The third eye is not opened by force, concentration, or effort. Effort creates contraction. The inward movement of attention is relaxed, playful, alert, like a cat watching a mouse whole silent, patient, totally present. In this alertness, energy rises naturally. Ancient traditions symbolize this rising energy, but symbols are not the truth. Experience is. You don't need to visualize light or colors. Simply watch. Watching itself is enough. When attention is total, energy becomes still, and in stillness it becomes powerful. A still lake reflects the moon perfectly. A disturbed lake cannot. The third eye reflects reality without distortion when attention is undivided. As attention settles inward, you become less dependent on external stimulation. Noise, drama, and constant excitement lose their attraction. A quiet joy begins to surface, not caused by anything, not dependent on anyone. This joy is the fragrance of gathered energy. When energy is scattered, you feel tired, bored, restless. When energy is centered, you feel relaxed yet vibrant. This is why meditation is not escapism. It is the greatest efficiency. You stop wasting your life force. The third eye does not suppress desires. It understands them. And when desire is understood, its grip loosens. Energy previously trapped in desire becomes available as awareness. The same energy that was moving outward in craving now moves inward as clarity. This transformation is alchemical. Nothing is rejected, nothing is condemned. Everything is used. Attention inward also brings sensitivity. You start feeling subtle movements inside you, small tensions, small relaxations, small shifts of mood. This sensitivity makes you intelligent about yourself. You no longer push yourself unnecessarily. You begin to live in tune with your own rhythm. The third eye brings harmony between body, mind, and being. Energy is no longer divided against itself. Even in action, something remains still inside. You can work, speak, love, and create, yet remain rooted in yourself. This rootedness gives you stability in chaos. Situations may change, people may come and go, but your center remains untouched. Attention inward is not withdrawal from life, it is grounding in life. From this ground, action becomes graceful. You are no longer driven by compulsion, you act out of clarity. The third eye does not make you passive, it makes you precise. Each movement carries less waste, less conflict, less inner friction. Energy becomes a servant of awareness instead of a slave of habit. When attention returns home, you feel complete. Not because you have achieved something, but because nothing is missing. The search ends not with fireworks, but with a deep, quiet satisfaction that does not need to be expressed, explained, or proven, because it is felt directly as a fullness that is already here. Awakening is not an achievement, because whatever can be achieved belongs to the ego, and awakening is the disappearance of the ego. You have been conditioned to think in terms of effort, progress, goals, success. This conditioning enters spirituality as well, turning awakening into another ambition. But awakening is not in the future. It is here. It is not something you become. It is something you remember. You were awake before the mind was trained, before fear was taught, before ambition was injected. Childhood has glimpses of it. Moments of wonder, moments of total presence, moments when time disappears. Those moments were not ignorance, they were innocence. Awakening is a return to that innocence, but with awareness. It is not childish, it is childlike. The third eye does not add anything to you, it removes layers. Layers of conditioning, layers of belief, layers of false identity. Each layer dropped is not a gain but a relief. You feel lighter, more spacious. The burden you were carrying was never life, it was the idea of yourself. Awakening happens when this idea loosens its grip. You stop trying to be someone, you allow yourself to be. This allowing is the key. The mind wants methods, techniques, guarantees. Awakening laughs at all of them. It happens in moments of deep seeing, deep listening, deep silence. It happens when you are utterly present without motive. The third eye opens not to fulfill a desire, but to end all desires. This ending is not sad, it is liberating. Desire keeps you tense because it is always about tomorrow. Awakening brings you home to now, and now is enough. In awakening, you realize that truth was never hidden, you were simply looking in the wrong direction. You were looking outward for what has always been inward. The third eye turns you around. It is a 180-degree shift, not an addition. Suddenly, you see that peace was not missing, it was overlooked. Love was not absent, it was misunderstood. Joy was not rare, it was ignored. Awakening is not dramatic. It does not come with thunder or visions. It comes like dawn, slowly, quietly, without announcement. One moment darkness is there, the next it is not. You cannot say exactly when night ended and day began. Awakening is like that. One day you notice that you are no longer fighting yourself. Thoughts come, but they do not disturb you. Emotions arise, but they do not enslave you. Life happens, but it does not crush you. Something has shifted from doing to being. The third eye sees without effort. There is no strain, no tension, no urgency. You stop asking how to awaken. The question itself drops. You stop seeking teachers, paths, systems, not because they are wrong, but because you have found the source within. This does not make you arrogant, it makes you humble. You see that existence has always been supporting you. Even your struggles were part of the awakening, part of the remembering. Nothing was wasted. Every mistake was a lesson in disguise. Awakening does not reject the past, it integrates it. You see your whole life as a preparation, not as a failure. The third eye gives you this vision of wholeness. You no longer divide life into spiritual and worldly. Everything becomes spiritual because everything is seen with awareness. Eating, walking, speaking, resting, everything becomes meditation. Not because you practice it, but because you are present. Awakening is not an experience you have. It is the end of the experiencer. Only life remains, flowing freely, without resistance, without interpretation, without a center that claims ownership. And in this flow there is a deep trust, a surrender without fear, a knowing without words, a remembrance so total that even the idea of awakening disappears. Truth is not something to be discovered, it is something to be lived. The moment truth becomes an idea, it loses its fragrance. The third eye does not collect truths, it lives them. It is not interested in philosophies, doctrines, or conclusions. It is interested in direct contact with reality. This directness is what makes life vibrant. Most people live second-hand lives thinking what others have thought, believing what others have believed, repeating words that were never their own experience. The third eye ends this borrowed existence. It brings authenticity. You no longer need to agree or disagree, you simply see. And seeing is enough. When truth is seen, it does not need defense. Lies need protection. Truth stands on its own. The third eye gives you this standing. You become rooted in your own experience. This rootedness creates integrity, not as morality, but as alignment. Your thoughts, words, and actions begin to come from the same source. There is no inner contradiction. Conflict disappears, not because life becomes easy, but because you are no longer divided against yourself. The third eye reveals that truth is not separate from daily life. It is not hidden in temple scriptures or special moments. It is present in your breathing, in your listening, in your seeing. When you are aware, everything becomes transparent. You no longer impose meaning, you receive it. This receptivity is feminine, soft, open. The mind is aggressive. It wants to conquer truth. The third eye allows truth to enter you. This is why humility is essential. Not humility practiced, but humility understood, the understanding that you do not know, and that not knowing is beautiful. In this not knowing, curiosity is reborn. Life becomes a mystery again, not a problem to be solved. The third eye thrives in mystery. It does not rush to conclusions. It stays with means, with processes, with living moments. Through this staying, depth happens. Superficial living disappears. You no longer skim the surface of life, you dive into it. Pain is felt fully, joy is tasted deeply, love is experienced intensely. Nothing is avoided, nothing is clung to. Truth lived through the third eye is dynamic. It is not static. It changes with life, flows with life. You stop seeking certainty. Certainty is a prison. The third eye brings trust instead. Trust in your seeing, trust in existence, trust in the moment. This trust does not come from belief. It comes from repeated seeing that life supports awareness. Even chaos has order when seen clearly. Even suffering has meaning when not resisted. The third eye does not give answers, it gives insight. Insight is alive. Answers are dead. Insight continues to unfold. With each moment, something more is revealed, not because reality changes, but because your capacity to see deepens. The third eye matures. It becomes sharper yet softer. Sharp in clarity, soft in compassion. You stop condemning darkness because you understand it. You stop idealizing light because you live it. Truth lived this way makes you simple. Simplicity is not poverty, it is richness without clutter. You need less to feel fulfilled. You speak less, but say more. You move less, but arrive deeper. The third eye does not create saints, it creates real human beings. People who laugh, cry, fail, succeed, yet remain centered. This centeredness is the gift. Life no longer shakes you unnecessarily. You bend when needed. You stand when needed. There is flexibility without weakness, strength without hardness. Truth lived through the third eye is freedom without rebellion, obedience without slavery. You are in tune, not following rules, but responding to reality. And in this response, life becomes a dance rather than a duty, a celebration rather than a burden, a living truth unfolding moment by moment without effort, without fear, without conclusion.